Welcome to your weekly glass demo. This is part 2 of the oval bowl design that I've done. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, check that out first. So you might remember from the first video that there was going to be some overhang of my top pieces and might cause an uneven edge. So before I took this clip, I used the belt sander to grind down the edges that were really poking out, and you can check out the video on using grinders. It's called the daily grind in the tools videos, and that will show you, you'll actually see this piece being ground down. But once you finish grinding, you need to make sure that you use your toothbrush. I'm not going to have a toothbrush for people to use at the studio, so if you need to use a little brush for scrubbing your ground edges, please bring one. And you just use a little soap and water, and you can do this in the sink, and you just want to scrub all those edges really well, because you don't want that glass dust that can get pushed back into those porous edges that have been ground away to be in there, because they can resurface when you do another firing as a scummy edge or divot. Once I had my piece out of full fuse, I wasn't super in love with it. Just the colors and design just weren't exactly what I wanted. So I went ahead and attempted to add some stuff to it. I was really torn between the back and the front side of it because I really liked both sides. And so I tried adding another layer of that tree stamp with the Easy Fire enamels. I wanted to see if it would come out better on top of the glass instead of it, rather than in between. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. But you can see in this close-up here, I did miss some spots where my powder frit didn't quite cover all the areas that the Colors for Earth paint was, and so I've got some little divots where the paint's coming through and it's not glossy like the rest of it. So before I fixed that, I decided I wanted to kind of dull the yellow color a little bit and see if I could add some more stamps. So I just used the similar Easy Fire enamel. It's a purple one with some stickers again, and I added those over top. It's not very thick, so I know it won't completely cover my yellow, but I'm just trying to mute the color a little bit because it was just way too bright for my taste. If you're using stickers like this and you mess up like I did here, you can go back in after it's dry and scratch away. I used a needle tool that you can use from your pottery kit, or you can also use a toothpick, will work just fine. My favorite's the needle tool though, because it will fit in your hand very nicely. I also tried to hide a little signature there. I didn't really see it when it came out. That's okay. But then to cover up my Colors for Earth spots, I tried to add this blue powdered frit. It's like a medium blue translucent powdered frit. I only added a very thin layer, hoping I would have just a light haze, but it mostly turned out pretty translucent. There's barely any color there. So if you really want it to be blue, definitely put at least about 1/8 of an inch high layer of that any translucent powder frit that you're putting on there, to make sure that the color will shine through. So after one more full fuse, my piece is ready to place in our mold. And if you remember our mold, it says on there that it does not sit flat. So I'm going to show you a trick to try and help out making a flat bottom for this mold without having to attach anything else to it. For this, you're going to need some fiber felt. I've got an 1/8 of an inch fiber felt that's available for purchase in the studio. And shout out to Jared in Tuesday night who helped figure this one out. But there's a foot on the bottom of the mold, and so we're going to use that to trace out a piece of felt that we'll place inside the mold. So I've just placed the mold on here, and I'm tracing onto my fiber felt, and then I'm going to cut that out with my X-Acto knife, and it's going to end up on the inside. And again, remember that we're using gloves while working with the molds. They're a material that we can't disinfect daily or regularly. They do get disinfected once they go into the kiln, but the in-between time where teachers are handling them and students are handling them, we want to make sure we're all wearing gloves just to help reduce transfer of anything. And that's it. I've trimmed that down and I've placed it into my mold. After I fired this, it still rocked just a little bit. You could probably add another layer of fiber felt, same size or a little bit smaller to that before putting it to fire. And that should make a much more stable foot. And you can see my attempt at adding my purple did mute my yellow some, but I still didn't quite like that side of my glass design. So I decided that I would slump this on the reverse side. So I've got my bottom facing up and my original side that I was working on is facing the inside of the mold. And that's okay, I can do that. I'm going to fire this to a slump tack. That's our firing where it slumps the mold or your glass and then it goes up really quickly to a tack fuse. And that's going to gloss up my surface as well as make sure that the glass sits really well onto that fiber felt and gives me a good divot that's creating my foot there. And here's my finished piece, which you can see in the studio. It still rocks just a tiny bit, so I could go ahead and fire it one more time, but this is the results of everything we've done in these two videos. Please feel free to ask questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's interpretation of this project. Good job. I'll see you in the studio. I'm gonna just add some music to all this. Do 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 do. Paintin', paintin' with my paint. Lots of paint and squiggly lines.